live for the Kenai. I'm here today with Jen Waller, the founder of Freedom House in Soldotna. How are you doing today, Jen? Super cool to be here with you.
Yes, good morning, everybody. It is good to be here.
So I have heard about Freedom House for a little bit now. However, I did not know a lot about it. I was able to kind of get to walk through today, and I did a little bit of perusing the website, and it seems like this is a super cool opportunity for people and a super cool service, as well as very needed. Jen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up? How did you kind of think, how did Freedom House come to your mind?
Yes, absolutely. I actually was born and raised here in Soldotna. I actually graduated Skyview High School in 2001, so I'm definitely a local girl. And being raised out of 6 kids, we were raised in the church. I knew all of the Bible stories, but of course, when you become an adult, you make your own choices. And I started making the wrong choices. I call marijuana the gateway drug. Growing up saying I was never going to do drugs, I was never going to drink. In the 10th grade, I let my guard down and I tried marijuana for the first time, and it really was just a door that I opened that eventually led me to full-on addiction to hardcore drugs and alcohol. Pain pills was my drug of choice, of course, heroin, anything really we could get our hands on, but it really started with just letting my guard down and thinking I was going to do this on the weekends, and then it turned into a physical addiction that I could not stop. I mean, I graduated high school with a 4.0.
Yeah.
I loved life. I was a good girl. I really was. And I didn't like to rock the boat. I was, in my eyes, my parents might say something different, but I was a pretty good kid.
Sure.
Didn't cause too much chaos. And it really turned me in from a happy-go-lucky, cheerful girl to hopeless, defeated, drug-addicted daughter, wife, mother. My addiction lasted almost 10 years.
From when you were 15?
About 16.
So about 26.
Yes,
okay.
correct.
Yeah.
And in that 10 years, I had overdosed at least 5 times. Those were hospital visits. I would find myself in the ER with heart attack symptoms at the age of 21, and the doctors were trying to figure out, why a seemingly healthy young woman was having these symptoms, and I wasn't telling them because I was crushing and snorting and smoking every pill I could get my hands on. I just didn't want to die, so I was just there to try to get help, and this just continued on for so long. I ended up having a beautiful daughter in the midst of my addiction. My mom and my sister were helping raise her because I was a mess. At 21, I went to my first inpatient rehab. My dad had got online, they knew I was a mess, and found one in Phoenix, Arizona.
Sure.
Basically, he offered it to me because he had found out I was stealing from him.
Sure.
I was stealing from my parents to get my next fix, because when I quit doing Oxycontin, they were going for $140 for one pill.
Wow.
And so think of someone that's not working, that's fully physically dependent on these drugs. I did things that I said I would never do to get that next fix, and it really just ran and ruled my life. Literally, I was a slave to drugs. Absolutely. And so he approached me and said...
How old were you when you had your kid?
Well, I got pregnant at 18. I had her when I was 19.
Okay.
So I'm... Get offered, Jen, either you're going to this rehab or I'm going to turn you in, was my dad's words. And so in my mind at 21...
Kind of some tough love.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And looking back, man, he had a lot of soft love too, because I was stealing his checks and forging his name, I was legally breaking the law. And so he ended up flying me to Phoenix. I went through a detox there in the heart of Phoenix, in this little small town Alaska girl.
Wow.
It was an experience to be in this detox center, but then get transported right over to an inpatient rehab for 30 days. I graduated that, moved to Ohio because I knew I didn't want to come back here to Soldotna area where everyone that I knew, weren't making good choices. My daughter was 2 at the time. Moved to Ohio with my grandparents. I was just able to white knuckle 30 days clean just because I didn't really know anyone or anything, but I got a job working at a factory, met the wrong people, and we started, the same pill that was going for $140 here in Soldotna was going for $40
Sure.
there in Ohio. And so it was like, oh my gosh. So unfortunately, I just wasn't ready yet. I hadn't surrendered. Looking back, I can tell you what was wrong, but so got back into my addiction, met this man at my job that we started dating, and after 9 months of dating, we got engaged and got married really right away, and he had a son, I had a daughter, and then I am fully in my addiction. My husband was not an addict. He's what we call a normie.
Yeah,
He can have one beer and walk away.
Sure.
I didn't know what that was like. We'd have barbecues and I'd have to have all 6 of the beers, and snorting Xanax and everything else till I passed out. And he didn't understand that. But anyways, this pretty much after we got married, I woke up one day and I'm just a mess. But I was like, I don't want to live in Ohio anymore. I want to move to Alaska, back where my family is. And he sold everything he had. He, as you'll hear throughout my story, is just an amazing guy that God created and designed just for me. But we moved to Alaska in '06. Found out I was pregnant pretty much right away, but I'm fully in my addiction again, guys. And the only way that I can talk about stuff like this is because I have been redeemed, is because I have been restored, and that God has truly forgiven me for this past stuff. But throughout my addiction, with my pregnancy with our son, my husband would plead and beg because I had a miscarriage at this point. Just the guilt and the shame just fuels our addiction.
Sure.
And it makes us want to not feel, makes us want to numb out. And that's what drugs and alcohol do. All it does is it kills you emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and unfortunately some physically. It only takes away. Addiction will never give life. It will only take away. And so I ended up having our son in 2007, thankfully healthy, 8.5-pound baby boy. And then my addiction continued for about 2 more years. Me and my husband had been married for 4 years at the time, and we had decided to call it quits. He had been trying to raise the kids, work a full-time job, all the while I am just a mess, fully in my addiction. And so in my mind, I thought, well, this will be good if we get a divorce, because then I can really party how I want to without being tied down. And those are the lies from the enemy that I was believing. So basically what had happened is my last use, I had done a lot of black tar heroin. My sister had my kids at the time. She thought I was, doing recovery related meetings because I had already been to 2 rehabs at this point. Locally here at Serenity, I went through. I was able to stay sober for 9 months after that time, which was the longest I was clean my whole adult life.
Right.
But as you'll hear in the recovery community, you're only as sick as your secrets. And there were secrets that I was not willing to expose, to bring to the light, to work through with my sponsor, or to work through with God. And it just kept me sick. And so I ended up drinking, and alcohol absolutely is a drug if you are an addict or in recovery. In my mind, heroin, pills, all that stuff was my drug of choice. So I rationalized that I'm just going to have a beer.
Yeah, you're not in your drug of choice. So,
Yes.
I mean, is it really that bad? Right. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Sure.
And so being an addict, I went to get 1 beer, right? That's all I was going to have. But I didn't just get, a 12-ounce beer. I got a 40.
A 40. Yeah, sure.
It was like called Colt 45 or something. And I'm a real lightweight anyways. And so drinking this 1 beer, I was wasted, within 15 minutes, and looking for drugs within the hour of 9 months clean and sober. And so that spun me out on my last relapse cycle, and I was out there for about 3 months, and I finally showed up at my sister's house in an overdose state, throwing up, not being able to breathe, and she kind of swooped me up and took me to Serenity, and was because she knew I was doing outpatient through them, and so she was like, what should I do with her? Basically, should I take her to the hospital? And the director happened to be there at the office at that time, and she said, Jen, can you be here in the morning with your bags packed? If you can be here at 10 a.m., we're going to get you right in.
Okay.
And so
kind of a small miracle.
Yes.
Large miracle.
In my mind, it was a miracle because I know it's usually 6 to 8 weeks waiting or whatever.
Right. It's not normally a be here in the morning, we'll get you in.
We'll get you in.
Sure. Wow.
And so, but you got to remember, man, I was hopeless because I knew I had already been there. I'd already
Yeah,
been to two
sure.
rehabs. I'm thinking, what's going to be different this time? And actually, my husband, we had filled out divorce papers. He was moving back to Ohio with the kids. You know, I absolutely was not fit to be a mother. And so I had nothing to live for at this point. I was thinking, why? Why go back to a rehab when obviously I can't stay sober? And so that morning I took a handful of pills, blood pressure, I mean, pills I don't take. I found some blood pressure medicine, all kinds of weird stuff, and I chased it with Crown Royal whiskey because my husband was dropping me off at the intake office and I did not want to live anymore. I didn't think there was hope. And so I took those pills and got taken out to Serenity House rehab, and you know those next 3 days were a blackout to me, but I did not die. God woke me up. So that was June 26th is my sobriety birthday, 2009.
Wow.
So I took the pills on the 25th, but June 26th is my sobriety birthday, but it was June 28th, 3 days later, when I woke up in that rehab and I got on my knees and I raised my arms and I literally surrendered my life to Jesus. Like there, I knew that if I wanted to live and not die, I had to make this full surrender. No holding back. Like that secret that you wanted me to work through and deal with, I'm doing it because I want to live and I don't want to die. And as soon as anyone out there listening that might be in addiction, the moment you realize that you could be free is when freedom starts.
Sure.
And that moment, I realized once I surrender, I could be free. I wasn't free instantly, that I could be free. Freedom started for me, for my journey, for my life. And so that was actually this month. I'm celebrating 9 years clean and sober, not a drip of alcohol, drop a drug.
Congrats.
Yes.
That's a long time.
I
Super
know.
impressive.
I know. It seems like just yesterday, but 9 years is awesome. Almost as long as I was in my addiction. So I'm coming up
You're
on...
matching it.
Yes, on the other side. So in the meantime, getting sober, you know, I did 90 meetings in 90 days, intensive outpatient counseling. I was in with Serenity, doing that outpatient for 9 months, graduated that program, did parenting classes, learned how to become a mom, because when you've used for so long and you all of a sudden wake up sober, which I do have to tell you, God has restored our marriage. So the divorce papers were shredded and burned, and God has restored mine and my husband's relationship.
That's
We've
awesome.
just celebrated 12 years of being married. We have had another child out of my addiction. And so we have a total of 4 beautiful children together and whatnot. But through this last 8.5 years, right away, I knew that I wanted to spread the hope that I have found. And so I got into prison ministry within that first year, hospital ministry, rehab ministry. Throughout the state of Alaska, God just has really put a fire in my heart for our whole state. I know that we lead the nation in everything bad, basically suicide to drug addiction, domestic violence. And I know the root cause, you know, that everyone has a hole inside of them that they're trying to fill. They're trying to numb out. They're trying to find what can fill that void. And, you know, what I found and what I preach is that it's Jesus. He is the only thing, the only person that can fill that void inside of us, not sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Sure.
None of that will fulfill that void. And so I get to travel the state and go on missions trips and go to these villages, which, man, once you get off the road system in Alaska, it's pretty much like third world country stuff. It's pretty amazing the places God has taken me and let me share his story, my testimony of freedom and deliverance. I became the female chaplain here at Wildwood. It's been probably 4 years ago now. I've been doing prison ministry for 6 or 7 years, and a couple years into being the chaplain and going into the dorms and praying with these women and just sharing the hope, I was just seeing the need for a home for when they get out of prison, or when people get out of rehab. Thankfully, I was blessed when I got sober. You know, my husband was a normal person, so we had a house. Yes,
you had a normie waiting for you.
So I had a house, a home to go to. But I know a lot of people don't, or they don't have supportive family, or they don't have family, you know, just all different walks of life coming out of addiction. But what really got to me, one day after Bible study, a woman came up to me, and with tears in her eyes, she was asking me, Jen, do you know where I can go when I get out of jail? I'm getting out of prison tomorrow. I've been clean for 90 days. I've been in here for 90 days. And I know that if I go back to where I came from, which is her old dope dealer's house, I'm going to relapse.
Sure.
I have nowhere else to go. It's 20 below zero outside. I can't, pitch a tent. And I had to look at this beautiful woman and tell her no, that I didn't know where she can go. There was nowhere for you to go tomorrow. And that just was devastating to me. I drove home. I live out in Sterling, so it's like a 45-minute drive from the prison. And I just remember praying the whole way home and asking God, what can I do for these women? Because this sucks to tell them no.
Right. Yeah.
You're making all these good choices, good job, but there's nowhere for you to go to get discipled and to get mentored and whatnot. And so, long story short, God just laid on my heart that he wanted me to be basically, okay, you see a problem, you see a need here, Jen. That's what I created you for. That's what my church is for. The body of Christ as a whole is to see the need and be my hands and feet and make this happen. So I remember writing in my prayer journal on February 1st, it said, I think God wants me to open a women's home, 2016.
2016.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it just started as a prompting in my spirit. I don't hear a loud thundering voice of God. Now, I'm not saying he can't talk like that, but he doesn't normally. It was just in my heart. I just knew that he was saying, Jen, I want you to do this. And so never being part of a nonprofit, I've never been on a board, I had no idea how any of that operates. I just got online and I started doing some research and I started looking up across the state of Alaska other faith-based transitional homes and reached out to the directors and kind of shared my heart and vision. So then I got to travel to Juneau and the Valley and up in Anchorage and tour these faith-based homes that were already working. Some of them have been open for years, others were new. But just go see what was already working in our state. And then my plan was to kind of bring that back to Soldotna, and tweak it a little bit for our community because every community in Alaska is unique.
Yeah, a little bit different.
Totally, a little bit different. And so I was just kind of taking their baseline and then we tweaked it a little bit to kind of form our community here. That was the calling and the start of Freedom House. So
yeah, I want to know about Freedom House and about how this came to be, and I think I'm getting a perfectly great idea of how that kind of personally grown out of your experience, out of 10 years of really a struggle and a fight and really a great blessing to get back into Serenity House in just one day. And I really liked what you said, that addiction never really gives life. It can kind of take away maybe some parts of areas of life that you don't think you really want to, but it seems like maybe how you're saying, like, to numb some parts, you end up kind of numbing and stripping almost the entirety of anything that's really worth living for. That's been sticking with me since you said that. And I think it's awesome. I think it takes a ton of courage, a ton of really guts to be like, I'm going to go start this house. Like, I didn't have anywhere, I think a lot of people, they're like, yeah, it's tough. This person didn't have anywhere to go. But, eventually can distance themselves from that. Be like, yeah, that's a problem. But, there are a lot of problems in this world. I can't fix them all, Hopefully something comes around. Hopefully she finds a place to stay. But that's not the direction that you took. You took the one that's really hard, I think. I'm like kind of over, just sitting here kind of like getting a little daunted, literally a little daunted. Like, oh, wow. Like, I can kind of picture, like, I guess I'm going to start a house, like, where people can live and find a relationship with God and, like, enter into a new world of life,
freedom.
Of freedom. That's so, no, I'm loving this. It's super interesting, and
it only gets better. There's just miracle after miracle that has happened from that point. So
you write in your journal February 1st, 2016, kind of, I want to do this.
But I was scared.
Right.
So for 2 months, so all of February and March, I didn't tell anybody about it. It was just between me and my journal. And God just kept nudging. And so 2 months later, I thought, I have an amazing background of pastors that have been huge parts of my recovery, my journey, my discipleship. 5 pastors that I can call. I have, personal cell phone numbers. So I called all 5 of them and I thought, okay, I'm going to go meet with these pastors that have poured into my life and I'm going to tell them what I feel like God's calling me to do. And my mind was saying, they're going to tell you you're
You're
crazy.
crazy.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Or at
Yeah.
least not yet, like maybe
Make a
way down the
10-year
road.
plan.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay, so I set these meetings up. I go and I meet, most of them physically, some I had to call, but we meet, we discuss it, and every single one of the pastors said, not only are you the person for this job, but we're behind you, we got your back, jump, do it now.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, that didn't quite work out how I thought.
Sure. Yeah, now I really gotta
Now
do
I
it.
gotta do
Yeah.
it. And so I had the support from the beginning, and then I reached out to people I've been in ministry with in the prison for a while. We formed a board, a nonprofit. Our very first meeting was June of that year in the parking lot of a church,
Sure.
with folding chairs. And we just sat in the parking lot and kind of, what will this home look like? What will it be? And then I started for a couple months just driving around Soldotna. I knew it had to be it was going to be in Soldotna. I knew it had to be in the heart of town because the majority of our women aren't going to have vehicles. They're not going to have driver's license.
Right.
And in order to be in compliance, we have a pretty big program here that they have to do. And so they've got to get a job within 30 days. They have to be in their outpatient programming, whether it's through Kenai, Serenity, Cicada, Aquila, we have all these programs, so they have to be in compliance with that. They've got to come to devotions 3 days a week here at the house. We do a Tuesday night chapel that's required, a house dinner we do once a week. They have doctor's appointments, so I knew the location was key.
Right.
Had to
Yeah.
be where they can either walk, bike, or a cab wouldn't be too much because they're not going to have anything
Sure.
coming in. And so drive in the back streets of Soldotna for a couple months and just praying, like, God, show me which house, highlight which house. And long story short, where we're located on Shady Lane here in Soldotna, this building used to be a daycare for 17 years, and then it sat empty for 7 years. And PCHS actually bought it, and they were going to turn it into a transitional living center. Exactly what we had.
Right, yeah.
But for 7 years, they paid the payment, the mortgage on it, and because it was about $500,000 renovation for
Wow.
the city to open it, they decided after 7 years of making a payment, we don't want it anymore, we're going to give the building back to the owner. Well, that's when the owner contacted me and said, hey, I heard you're looking for a spot for Freedom House. I've got this 5,000 square foot building, it's huge, there's meeting rooms, there's all these bedrooms. And she said that she has a child in addiction, and that she heard what Freedom House was going to be. So she said, I'm willing to sell it to you guys for what they paid it down to,
Oh, okay.
which was like an amazing price.
Sure.
So I come over and I look at the building, and the word on the street, before I even got here, people were saying, Jen, don't even go look at it. The word on the street is that it's too damaged. It's too broken. The foundation's rotted. The roof's going to give. It's got mold in it. Like, we just need to tear that building down. It's definitely not inhabitable, and especially because you don't have any money to completely transform it. And as those words were being spoken over the building, I just seen a picture of my life, a snapshot of me getting dropped off by my husband, trying to end my life with those pills and whiskey, of hopeless, broken, addicted, defeated, dirty
Yeah.
woman that I was, and what God has done and transformed my life into. I knew that this was going to be Freedom House.
Sure.
I knew
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they were saying it's too broken. I was like, we have
Yeah.
to do it. Like,
Yeah.
this is it. Because God wants to take something broken, dirty, and messed up. You walked through this
Yeah,
place. It's like a
gorgeous.
5-star.
Super beautiful.
Everything's brand new, from
Yeah.
the flooring to
Yeah.
the paint to the furniture. I mean, this place God has just literally transformed. So we buy the building for $250,000 as is. City inspector came over and said, Jen, to get these doors open, it's going to need about $450,000 in renovations.
Wow. Jeez.
700.
That's a lot of money.
Okay, so like $750,000
Yeah.
is what we were looking at.
And then you have Freedom House.
And then I wasn't even thinking
Yeah.
about like
Yeah.
operations.
Yeah.
So I literally 3 days before I had an appointment to sign the papers, because once I signed the dotted line, it's our building, moldy, broken,
Yeah.
whatever. And I knew we couldn't open until all of the requirements were met. And so I didn't sleep for 3 days. I couldn't eat. I am a human, but I knew that God was saying, go, that this
Mm-hmm.
is my house. And again, it wasn't loud. I didn't see writing in the sky. I literally had to walk by faith and
Mm-hmm.
not by sight, just like his word tells us that if we take that next baby step, he's going to lay the next step out for you. And that's kind of what I did this whole journey. I remember waking up in the middle of the night before I had to sign the papers, and I like woke up my husband and I was like, Danny, like, we got to just pack up, get the kids, we got to go to Mexico, we got to
Yeah.
get out of
We're
town.
out, yeah.
And I was like, I am in way over my head.
Yeah.
Like, this is
Yeah.
scary.
Sure.
And so I signed the paper. Me and my 6-year-old at the time went in and signed the papers to take ownership of the property. The owner co-signed to where, because we had no money down.
Right.
We had no money to get. All I had to give these people was a vision.
Yeah.
Was my dream,
Yeah,
and a lot
yeah.
of people's dreams don't quite come to pass.
Don't quite, yeah. Don't, yeah.
So she took a huge leap of faith by
Wow.
allowing us to take this building with no money down,
Sure.
and the bank gave us a super good payment plan. But anyway, so we signed the papers December 17th of 2016. So
Okay.
God spoke to me in February. That December, we
December,
signed the
yeah.
papers. They figured it would take us 3 to 5 years to make this building up to city code to open if we had money, is what the inspection report said.
Yeah.
And we had $800 in our bank account when I signed the papers.
And $400,000+ of
Renovations.
Renovations.
Correct.
Okay.
So
So
that doesn't, I'm a
399,
college
yeah.
dropout, but I can tell you the math didn't add
Yeah,
up.
sure,
It
sure.
wasn't quite adding up. But I knew I'm still doing prison ministry and rehab ministry, and I personally had loved ones in addiction still fighting. And so I was not going to back down until there was no more to pull from. And I'm trying to just fight on the front lines because God has saved me from the darkness. And I feel like sometimes he saves us from the darkness to send us back in,
Sure.
to help those that are trapped, that are lost, that are hurting in the darkness. And so that's all that was on my mind is, he has rescued me and saved me, and I got to get back in there and help those that are still lost. And so
It was in December you had signed.
correct. So I start doing these volunteer work days. I start going around to churches and sharing my vision and my testimony. And God just opened the doors to about 20 churches, which is pretty amazing.
Wow.
All the way
Yeah,
from
that's a
Homer
lot.
to Seward to Moose Pass and everywhere in between. They would just welcome me in, and I'd get to speak, and then they would take a love offering. So we started getting money coming in. Volunteers. There was one work day we had over 30 volunteers show up. There was so many volunteers, I had to very nicely ask a half a dozen of them to leave because we couldn't tear down walls because there was people
Too many
everywhere.
people in the way. Yeah.
I'm like, what? This problem is awesome to have, but seriously, either go hang out outside or
Yeah.
and so we were just inundated. What we found, because we had login sheets, sign in and out, we logged all our volunteers, but we had over 500 volunteers in this home. The Lord had brought in over $100,000 cash to help pay for materials and stuff for the project, for the renovations. But in just 4.5 months, we signed papers December, the end of April, that same city inspector was standing here handing me my permit of occupancy to open the doors of Freedom House. Guys, we completed, this still is amazing to me, $400,000 of our renovations in 4 months.
And you were originally told 3 to 5 years if you already had
If we had money.
$400,000.
Correct.
Wow.
Yes. And so God just showed himself so big through all of the volunteers, through our board. We have a board of 8 members that has just got to witness this whole journey. And so we opened the doors of Freedom House May 1st of 2017, last year. So we
just a little over a year.
Yes. We just had our
Congrats,
1 year anniversary. And honestly, the miracles that I have witnessed, I'm going to try not to cry because
Yeah.
say, we couldn't pay our bills next month and the bank had to repo the home and we had to shut the doors of Freedom House tomorrow.
Yeah.
In the 1 year that we have been open, the lives that I have seen change, when I opened this, I knew we were going to help women,
Right.
but I had no idea that we were going to see whole families be restored, marriages be restored
Right.
that were like done when they come in.
Yeah.
And then you add God to the equation and he just shakes up everything that the world says can't be done. Kids being restored to their mamas, like these families that we have seen and then watch them successfully go back out into our local community and be productive members of society.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing that I get to wake up and come to the miracle every day.
Yeah.
And I get to see the miracle.
Yeah, it is kind of living. You get to see people become free again. It sounds like what you said before, how you were broken and lost and you became put back together and found, and then this home was broken and too damaged, and now it's put together.
Yes.
And not only are people becoming free, but it also sounds like there's like a constant story of restoration that's continually coming around. Yeah.
Yes.
So in this last year, you have had
We've had 20
6 beds, right?
Yeah, so we have 6 beds, but in the last year we've had 20, I think we're at 26 intakes, meaning 26 women. And then unfortunately, addiction is a beast. I wish it was super simple, cut and dry.
Right.
They come in, they leave fixed.
Yeah.
But we have a 0 tolerance policy for drugs and alcohol. My number one focus is that this home is safe. And secure,
Sure.
period.
Sure.
All of our staff are in recovery as well. So myself in recovery, I choose not to be around drugs and alcohol. You bring it in the home, you're going to be dismissed instantly, type of deal.
Yeah.
So we've had about 6 dismissals. Also, we have a strike policy, so not all of those were relapses, but basically the girls say they're late for curfew. Everyone has curfew.
Sure.
They'll get a strike. So 3 strikes and you're out. However, they can earn back a strike if they go 2 weeks without getting a strike. So it's really choices and consequences, and consequences, because that's what we're trying to break, the old behaviors and habits. And that's worked really well because they'll realize, oh, they're serious, they're going to follow through. And also, I can earn the strike back, type of deal. So it seems to have worked very well. Even with the 6 dismissals, 3 of those dismissals have already come back.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
and
ask.
I
imagine
they've
some
already come
are
back.
That was...
Another one is in the process
slipped,
of trying to get back, because we're not a rehab. We're not a homeless shelter. We are we call it a long-term recovery residence. So our goal is girls coming out of rehab or coming out of jail, to where they're already clean and sober, because we're not staffed with counselors. We literally are just providing that safe housing for women that want long-term recovery type of deal. And so
it might be a little bit case by case kind of thing. Do you have like a number of days of sobriety that you look for? Or do you kind of look for like maybe a mixture of days as well as like an attitude of staying clean, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so basically my drug test. We do random UAs and breathalyzers at any time, but also like to get through the doors, the hurdles they have to jump through is, fill out the application, but basically pass a drug test. We have a $200 a month housing fee that they pay, and then prescription meds they just can't be on. We have a house doctor that goes over all of our medication lists. So if they're on certain medications that are narcotic or that will trigger someone else, we're just not the house for them, because we have to keep this place safe.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into our success stories. I know we were talking about dismissals, but we have seen so many women successfully transition not only back into the community but into their families. And one girl that's actually still currently living here that has given me permission to share a little bit of her story is that she came to us. She had got arrested for a DUI. She had her infant in the car with her. So OCS takes baby. She goes to jail. She had drank 2/5 of vodka on this. It was a relapse type thing. So she is, we're talking 2 sheets to the wind. And they only held her at jail for 12 hours because it was her first offense. And so long story short, she went from jail still wasted to her house, loaded a gun, stuck it in her mouth, and was going to blow her head off. Yeah. She was done with life. She knew now her baby, her only thing she had was gone. Again, just deep, dark hopelessness. I get a phone call from a gentleman. I had spoke at a church in Homer. Someone that heard me speak, and he said, "Hey, I've got this girl. I need to bring her over to you. She's a mess." That's all, Usually I get the mess. They're a mess. And it's like, okay, bring them in and we'll see what we can do. Because even if I can't move them in here, I'm going to help them navigate their way to freedom, whether that's getting them into Serenity, into detox, into another rehab home. Like I do all, I help with all
kind
that.
of coordinate
So
care
that's what
there.
I figured we were going to do with her.
Sure.
Well, she come in, just sitting where you're at. Vodka like literally was blasting me back
Sure,
in
getting a
my
little
chair.
slight buzz. Yeah,
She's crying and snotting and just saying, she really just wanted to know. She kept saying, Jenny, do you think that there's hope for me? Through
Yeah.
the tears, through the
Yeah.
snot, do you think that there's hope?
sure.
And I was able to grab her cheeks and look her in the eyes and say, absolutely, there is hope
Wow.
and freedom. And so she filled out an application there. Because she still had alcohol in her system, I couldn't move her in.
Quite
So I
right.
told her she had to go sleep it off. And that next morning, she was able to move in. She was able to blow zeros on the breathalyzer. And this girl, so she's been here almost 7 months now.
Wow.
She's our senior resident. She is doing amazing. She's graduated a parenting class. The court lets her keep her baby here at Freedom House 4 days a week.
Wow.
So we have a baby living here, which has been awesome for all the other mothers in the
Sure.
home.
Yeah.
She gets to be his mama, and then dad has him the other days. But she's getting ready to graduate treatment through Kenai. She has a job, she said, for the first time, like a legal job,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she is just so full of joy, so full of life. And I get to see miracles like this. And it's hard work.
Yeah.
Oh
no.
my gosh, it is hard work
Yeah.
to not wake up and use and just run from, we got a lot of rules and
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that they have to follow through with. And for these girls, I tell them almost every day, they are warriors.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, they are warriors because they are, number one, waking up sober, but they're facing their demons head
Yeah.
on. The cool thing about Freedom House is they've got an army right here
Yeah.
with them. They are not fighting alone. We go to war in prayer, teach them the word, man. These are our bullet verses. We have them memorize scripture because just because you put the bottle down or the drug down doesn't mean the enemy ain't going to be there to tempt you, to try to get you back in.
Yeah.
So we have to fight him with the word of God. And so we just had this scripture memory challenge. And we had them memorize 3 scripts. If they wanted, they won a coffee card, $20 coffee card. So, of course,
Sure.
everyone's like, yes!
Yeah, we got this.
And so I'm thinking, give them 2 weeks to memorize it because it's hard for me to memorize scripture. And
Sure.
so we gave them like a 2-week time period to memorize these 3 verses. And I'm not even kidding you, 24 hours. My first guy come in yesterday and my girl standing at the office door spouting off these scriptures that she had memorized
Wow.
the night before,
Yeah.
winning the coffee card. But that is our goal and our key, to give them tools to go back out, because we know that the enemy has come to kill, steal, and destroy.
Sure.
But the end of that verse says, but I, Jesus, have come to give life and to give it abundantly.
Sure.
And if we can help in any way to give abundant life to these women,
Yeah.
makes it all worth it.
And it sounds like you have to many at
Yes.
this point. Because out of like one really brave, probably very trying and constantly daunting piece of work, you have been able to create a house where people can come and truly find freedom. Like, it sounds like they come here, they come to Freedom House, and it's, you said, transitional, so that means they get to stay, I think you said, for 9 months, right?
Yep, up to 9 months.
Okay.
Yep, but case by case, a lot of them don't need 9 months.
Sure.
A lot of them need less, and so it's just kind of what they need, but up to 9 months, yes.
Okay. I knew I was going to come here and we were going to talk about Freedom House, and so I was online, and it said that you guys were about $59,000 away from $459,000 of funds raised, and this is what we're going to do with it. One was a new roof, another one was a 17 parking space lot paved, and the other one was 2 ramps, I believe, for wheelchair handicap accessible. And I came here and there was some heavy equipment in the back, so I thought, whoa, the paving's already started. But that's not the case. You're not getting out the paving materials, right?
Correct. No,
Why is that? Because I know we talked about it, but I think it's super awesome.
Yes. Okay, so we have about 1,000 square feet of we call it our Hope Wing, and it's completely disconnected from the residential side of Freedom House. And that was going to be commercial office spaces that we were going to rent out so we could have some monthly income.
Sure.
Correct? Because We have not got a single penny from the state government. We have not got one grant from the beginning. When I say we completed 400,000, that is no grant money, no funding federally, and then also we're operating at about at a $9,000 a month budget. So to literally from start to end every 30 days, we got to have $9,000 coming in, and if you do the math, each girl pays $200 a month housing fee.
Right.
We
but
have
even
five.
if 6 beds are full.
So
I mean, that's
$1,200. That's not even our mortgage payment.
Right. Yeah.
And so that also, we want to start holding them accountable and making them realize, oh, you got to pay for a shelter and for whatnot. So it's really just something to help, but it does help offset some bills. But so this commercial office wing, I seen the need as these girls were getting better. We've been open a year. And they're getting their kiddos back. What we're realizing is we have to dismiss them from Freedom House because we're not set up over here to house children. And so I went to my board with this new vision. Hey, can we turn that 1,000 square feet into 2-unit apartment so that there's at least an option for the moms with kids that are getting their kids back from, state custody, that they can live up there for a certain amount of time to help transition. We'll still drug test them randomly. Accountability is huge in recovery. If they know, you know what, Jen not only cares, but she's going to be making me pee in a cup for her to hold me accountable. That's huge in recovery. And so
on the one hand, it seems like that is some accountability. On that same note, it seems also like that's kind of support as well.
Absolutely.
If somebody's taking that time, just kind of hold somebody accountable and hold them responsible and check in with them. It also kind of says, I care, it seems like.
Absolutely. Yes. And like I said, a lot of these women don't have family, supportive family, sisters. One girl was just telling me, crying in the office the other day, I'd never had sisters like I do now. And it's just such a joy to get to hug and tell her that we love her and she's a warrior bride and whatnot. So that's our hope with this. The Hope Wing is to offer a safe spot for mamas getting transitioned back with their kids. So with changing that from commercial to residential, we now no longer have to have 17 paved parking spots, which just the parking lot was about $50,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Lots of money.
Yeah.
So now that we don't have to have that, we have this lot, it's a city lot, but it's huge. And so our whole backyard gets to now be a backyard. We actually, that's what the equipment was doing, spreading topsoil. They brought in a bunch of gravel first and then a bunch of topsoil, and we're getting it sprayed with hydroseed on Monday so we can have a lawn and a fire pit. And we got cornhole games to set up back there just so that the girls living here and then soon the families living upstairs, the moms and kids, will have a safe fenced-in backyard that they can continue to grow and be free in. The roof still does need done. That's one thing that we still need to raise a little bit of money for. We still need to fix our wheelchair ramp out front. We got to put tow guards and rails up to be legal. So we're operating on what they call a provisional permit, meaning we can open the doors, but we have a certain amount of time to finish things that have to be done.
Sure.
To make it completely legal. So we're still fundraising, of course, and looking for monthly partners. If you feel led, our website, if you want to check it out, we got a pretty awesome website, but the address is freedomhouse907.com. And if you feel like sewing into this ministry or being part of, we're always looking for volunteers too to cook on our Tuesday night meals, because that's the one night a week that we provide a meal for Freedom House, which really the community provides, because what we do is we have volunteers sign up. And so you bring all of the ingredients. Say you're making lasagna. You bring all of the ingredients here to Freedom House on Tuesday at around 4 or 5. The volunteers get here. We assign a resident that's living here at the house to be your helper. And then you guys prepare the meal in our kitchen here at Freedom House with Freedom residents helping, because I remember when I got sober, I knew how to make top ramen and toast. And when I got sober, I had 3 kids and a husband. So I had to be taught
and
stuff.
They're like, Mom, we're kind of over it,
Pop-Tarts, cereal. And so to learn to cook is a life skill. Absolutely overwhelming. So this is one of the life skills. We love to pair up a community member with a resident and teach them how to follow a recipe.
Sure.
Teach them how to cook an actual meal and not just heat up a frozen meal or whatnot.
Right.
So it takes about 30 volunteers a month to run Freedom House that I coordinate. Each girl that lives here has what's called a Freedom Friend, and it's their own personal mentor. They each have their own. And so they meet with them once a week, have coffee or just talk. Have a healthy friend that says when I'm going to be there at noon, they're actually going to show up at noon.
Yeah.
And so that's super important to just give them healthy friends and surround them with women that are going to cheer for them and encourage them and pray for them. So super blessed. I could go on all day about different miracles, from the carpet to our washer and dryer brand new that's out there. I mean, God is good and He provides. We don't have a monthly income. Literally, we've been operating for 13 months now, 9,000 a month, just by God bringing in miracles every day. I'll check. I was telling you about getting a knock on the front door one day.
You should tell that story.
Okay.
That's a cool story.
Okay. So it was we had been open only 4 or 5 months. It was the end of the fall last year, and I was in the office looking at the bills, one of them being from NSTAR, natural gas, our heat here, and we didn't have enough money in our bank account to write the $650 something check to pay the heating bill. And I could hear the girls sitting out in the living room, and they're laughing, and they are living life, and they are clean and sober. And I remember sitting in my office saying to the Lord, I don't know how we're going to pay this bill. And I remember saying, I know you didn't bring us this far to close the doors now, but just thinking, how are we going to come up with the money? And this is just one of many, many bills, and that same time I get a knock on the door. We have this lovely security system, and I look up on the screen and I see a gentleman standing at the front door. So I go out of my office and open the door, and all the girls are sitting out there, and he hands me an envelope and says, my grandma wanted me to drop this off. And so I take the envelope back into the office and open it up, and there's a check in there for $10,000.
Wow. Yeah.
Like, knock on the door. God's saying, I got you. Don't, but we just have to be faithful and saying yes. And I scream from the office, so all the girls come running back, and I'm showing them, and they're just like, they get to witness these miracles. They literally know that they are living in a house that is a miracle house. And I have people, even, unbelievers, they'll walk in and say, the hair on the back of my neck stands up, like I can feel the presence of God here in this home because because this is His home and His presence is here. And so that's just one of the many testimonies that how we are where we're at today, and just excited to be part of this community that I grew up in, that I robbed and stole from, that I abused, and now get to be a light and get to help and get to give back to this community. So
I think what you're doing is super cool. Like, I know I keep going back to this, but I would have been extremely overwhelmed. I don't think I could have ever had the courage to do this, but it's awesome to be able to see you just really, with a lot of courage, move forward and meet this need and continue to, because it probably doesn't, I mean, at times it might be somewhat easier, but it probably is never easy. I know when I said earlier, so kind of offhandedly, and I knew like that was a stupid question when I asked it earlier, but I was like, so is this kind of your full-time gig? And you're kind of like, oh yeah. I was like, that was, I look around and it's this beautiful home, and there's all these people, all these beds, and there's all these new projects. I know we walked around the Hope Wing, and there's undergoing construction, so I thought, well, no duh, man, of course it is. And then some. And I think the community, the Central Peninsula, Soldotna, is so blessed to have this resource, especially as, you took so much time to be able to kind of go around Alaska and see what a faith-based house looks like, and then kind of adjust it specifically to Soldotna. I know there's a 6-bed transitional 9-month stay that people can have, not always needing that. If somebody is in need of help, or somebody knows somebody else, because I know this is for women, it's not co-ed. If somebody knows a loved one that needs help, and Freedom House, this faith-based recovery program, transitional living program, if they're in need of that, how can somebody get to you?
Yes, first I want to give out our number here at the house, in the office. It's 907-260 3733. I have prayed with more mamas that are weeping, because this
It's hard.
epidemic
It's
is
hard.
it's
Yeah.
horrific. It's everywhere. It's all over our community. And if you're a parent of a loved one struggling, do not give up hope, man. I don't care how dark it looks. If they are still breathing, there is still hope. And you give me a call, and we're going to pray with you and help you navigate this crazy journey together. But if you're someone that wants to get help, yourself, you can go to our website. The first step to get into Freedom House is filling out an application.
Okay.
I usually don't talk much about it, like fill out this application, because that's going to give me what I need to then schedule an interview, to then either offer you a bed here or say, you know what, inpatient would be better. Let's help you get plugged into the necessary, what you need first type of deal. But go to our website. We have a button on there that says applications. You can literally click it, print it out where you're at right now, fax it to us, send it to us, give me a call, drop it off. Once we get that application in our hot little hands, we schedule an interview and get you on the way in or to the way to help. So our website again is freedomhouse907.com.
And if there are other people that wanting to volunteer or other organizations looking to partner, do they also go to your website? Is that the best way to do that?
Or call me. Our email address is on the website as well, but we right now could use some sheetrockers for upstairs in our construction. What else did I tell you? Oh, we have a couple doors.
Some doors that need
to
put
be
in.
hung. Yep, so if you know how to hang doors. We want people that know what they're doing.
Sure, yeah.
For
yeah.
that part.
Yeah.
Just because this house is beautiful.
It's so
now.
beautiful. I know. I was looking around and I thought, I didn't really think like I'm going to move into this all women's house, but I kind of thought like, man, like maybe we could trade because it's like so beautiful. Yeah.
It's actually better than any house I've ever lived in.
Yeah.
I've got a nice house, but this house.
Yeah.
Okay, every
beautiful.
countertop in this whole home is granite.
Yeah, no,
We're
I noticed that
top
right
of the
away.
line.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean it's so beautiful. And if also, if you want to take a tour, you can call and schedule that through me. We do tours through the home, and Tuesday nights are open to the public as well. If you want to come have dinner in chapel with us Tuesday night, 6:30 to 8:30, swing on in.
Yeah, one thing we're learning, especially as more data comes out about, especially the opioid epidemic, but drug abuse in general, is that it's so pervasive at this point. If it's not like you personally or somebody you are close with, it's your friend who is then somebody is very close with. It's no longer something that's at an arm's distance. It's very close. It's a community thing. And I really don't see any reason why people shouldn't be aware, if you're in the Soldotna area, the Kenai area, even the Peninsula area, of why people should not be aware of Freedom House and all that it has to offer and all of its great resources, and even just to come down and kind of look at it and kind of just hear Jen's story really as well, because it's been so cool for me. I had known just a little bit about it, but the whole time I was very impressed and just kind of trying to wrap my mind around how this comes to be in like just a couple years. It's super awesome. So I would go to their website and look at that, freedomhouse907.com, as well as maybe get in touch with Jen.
Yes.
So
it's been awesome, Soldotna area, speaking to you guys. Again, keep us in your prayers because we're on the front lines, fighting this battle every single day. But our God is greater.
Thank you so much. This is Eric and Jen Waller here at Freedom House today. This was a Change for the Kenai podcast. Thank you very much.